Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself, and today I want to talk about our inner war, our inner conflict over control, and the resistance and the control war that we have going on. So, for starters, a lot of us are always kind of at war. We're creating tension in our bodies. This is the tension that keeps our muscles stiff, it keeps us sick, it keeps us unhealthy, and it keeps us in chronic symptoms and illness and pain and suffering, really. So when we have these chronic symptoms, chronic pain, chronic suffering, it's because we have inner tension. And the inner tension that we have usually comes from our inner conflict. And the conflict is usually two parts of ourselves that are at war, and it goes like this. Usually we have a very controlling nature. And so the first thing is that we may wake up, and from the second we get out of bed, we have a to-do list. We have our family that is doing everything wrong or not right, or they're not keeping things tidy or neat, or not following instructions, or not listening. And right, we have all these little problems that come up that we see that we need to fix and solve and dominate and control. And the reason we need to feel like we need to control everything and everyone, all the situations and all the people, to keep them orderly and neat and behaving properly and following the rules and our expectations and making life easy for us, is that we're afraid that if they are doing their own thing, or if they're doing something that's not considered orderly in our world, that it will cause us major stress and things will fall apart, and then we will fall apart. So we're afraid that if we don't line everybody and every situation up in our lives and control them so that it goes the way we want it to, so that we feel like we have an orderly, safe world that we live in and that we can cope with. When everything's out of our world, or out of our control, it feels chaotic. And chaos makes us feel so unsafe. Chaos, meaning it might not even be chaos, but you might walk into the room and see dishes on the kitchen counter that you didn't put there. And that's chaos in your world because you want it neat. But the chaos is that other people, it's out of your control. Other people live in the house too, and they're going to set things all over the counter wherever they darn well please. And unless you're walking around after people, either picking it up, trying to neaten and straighten as you go along from room to room all day, that is the only thing you will do, or you are going to get in conflict with people and say, you do this, you should do this, you have to do this. And as soon as you start to control situations and people especially, you are met with resistance. Nobody will be controlled. It is a natural state for people to resist you. So you might think it's a perfectly logical request for you to walk into the kitchen and say, clean up your own dishes. And they are going to hear something completely different. They're going to get on the defensive, and they're going to tell you all the reasons why they didn't, why they couldn't, and why you're being too hard on them. So you're going to meet with this resistance, and the resistance, then we try to fight. We try to stay in control of this resistance. It's an I have to win mentality. I will control this situation. I will dominate the situation. I won't let it get out of my control and be chaotic because I don't want everything to fall apart. So then you're arguing. You might be in arguments. You might be stressed by a situation or a person, and you are in opposition now, because when you're controlling, you're met with resistance, and now you're in opposition, and the opposition creates tension, and this inner conflict and this inner tension shows up in your body, and now you are creating the very symptoms and the very thing that you are wanting to avoid by keeping things in order. So by keeping things running smoothly and in order, and by trying to control everything, you're trying to avoid the very out of control, tense-filled environments that you dread, because it revs up your symptoms, it revs up your mind, it keeps you stuck and sick, and you're not in a natural, easy, peaceful state. And so you do all this pre-controlling, pre-domineering, pre-making lists, however it is that you manage to control your world. You do it, you like, you control it before things go awry, right? I got to do this, I have to do this, I have to keep this clean, I have to write this list, I have to do this. And you basically stress yourself out, and you put yourself in a frenzy, and all these rules and restrictions that are very tension filled anyways, in order to avoid something worse. And that worse thing is even more tension and conflict and more things falling apart. So you're creating a situation that is already tense. It's tense, and you are filled with tension in order to keep everything in control. The only reason we do this is that so we avoid what will happen if we don't keep things in control. Then it's even going to be worse, because when things fall apart and everything's chaotic, it's even harder on us, and we might completely break down or cry or scream or lose it, or the feelings will be too much for our body to contain, and our symptoms will be even worse. So we know it's not good to feel all this tension and control all the time, but we're doing it, our body, our nervous system, not consciously, but our nervous system is doing it to protect us from what's even worse, which is on the flip side of things that are completely out of our control and make us even worse. But when we're met with this resistance and tension from other people, it makes it even worse. And then we're left trying to control things, which is very, very tension filled. And now we're actually in conflict with others, which increases the tension and increases our symptoms. And it's almost as tense as if we had have just not tried to have control in the first place, not met with the resistance, and not met now with the conflict, and things just actually weren't, like, what? So let me just explain this. Walking into the room, let's take this basic example, and seeing dishes all over the counter that you didn't put there after you worked hard to clean the kitchen so that you wouldn't have to feel out of control when you looked at it. If you had have just walked by that and realized, taken a breath, it's okay, I'm not going to fall apart. This is tension for me. I don't like this. I don't like this inner chaos that it's bringing up for me, but I can take a breath, walk over, and simply just ask the person, hey, when you get a minute, could you please put away your dishes? But instead, what we do is we walk over to that person and we say, how many times have I asked you to put your dishes away? I've asked you every time. You never do it. You don't care how I feel. I just spent the whole morning, blah, 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 doing this. And I come in and you have your dishes all over the counter. Now they're in complete resistance to you. Now you've gotten into a conflict with them, and your symptoms are you're feeling alone, you're feeling abandoned, you're feeling misunderstood, you're feeling resentment and anger, and it's causing the same amount of tension in your body that it would have caused just by allowing yourself to look at those dishes, right? Maybe more. So the thing that we're doing is we're actually trying to protect ourselves by feeling this inner conflict and by feeling this out of control feeling. But when we create more conflict in order to avoid that, it actually can sometimes make things worse. And this is the inner war. It's ourselves against ourselves, right? It's that we don't want to feel out of control and chaotic on this side, so we control. But then on this side, we get the tension and the conflict, which also makes us feel out of control and keeps us living in tension and illness and sickness. So this is the war. This is usually the war. This is usually the inner war that's happening every day, all day, with people and situations that we're trying to control for good reason. But when we try to control it, we're also creating more of the exact thing that we don't want in our lives, and that is keeping us stuck and sick. So, but if we just say, okay, well then I'm just going to let nothing bother me, I'm not going to try to control anything, then we're having conflict on the other side that is basically saying, I can't stand to look at this chaos, I can't stand to have things out of my control, and all that emotion is bubbling up, right? So this is where journal work and meditation comes into effect, is that you need to, rather than take your frustration when you see those dishes to the other person and causing the conflict in your life and heightening the tension, You can take it. You don't have to just ignore it because it is causing you feelings. You can sit down now and journal or meditate on those feelings, those out of control, chaotic feelings, and you can basically let out some of that tension, that emotion. Be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, be good with yourself. Allow yourself to feel those feelings that make you feel like you can't contain them in your body, and allow yourself to feel out of control and what it feels like, and be with yourself. And realize that you can get through that, and that you don't have to create more tension in your life. And by the end of that session of journaling and meditating, you may not feel like yelling at that person anymore. You might have a different way to handle that situation. You may clean it up yourself, or you may ask them in a nice, totally respectful, different way that actually gets the results that you want. And then you carry on your day, and then you have to do it again and again and again. See, we're used to controlling, and this is, we try to control our world so that we don't fall apart. But we actually have to try not to control, because that's an inner conflict too, because our yearning to control is so deep that when we have that, we actually need to stop. We actually need to allow that feeling, journal about it, meditate about it, be with that feeling rather than react to that feeling. So it's not turning that feeling off and saying it's bad to control, because it's not bad to control. It's primal, and you're doing it for a good reason. But rather than reacting to the feeling of I can't stand this, so I need to control, that's a reaction. We say, I can't stand this, so I'm going to be with it. And I'm going to try to understand it. I'm going to try to learn from it. I'm going to try to soothe it. I'm going to try to love it. Take its hand, be there for it. Right? And this is how we ease that inner conflict of control and tension, which go hand in hand to keeping us sick and not changing our patterns, and not being able to get out of the cycle of constant tension in your body and your mind and your heart and literally all your muscles, nerves, organs, everything. And so we need to break that cycle, but not by just telling yourself you're bad for being controlling. That's not the way to do it. It's just allowing that feeling of needing to control come over you, but rather than reacting and trying to do something about it, to sit with it, understand it, soothe it, love it, and then take action after that, after you've really, come to terms with it and felt it. And so I hope this video has been helpful. I hope it's given you some idea of the inner war and the inner battle that we are living all day long, every day, when you are dealing with chronic pain, chronic illness, and chronic symptoms. So think about this and go back and watch this video again if you really want to get it, because it doesn't always all sink in at once. But this is literally the battle that you are fighting every day inside your body. So think about it, go over it again, and really try to understand what I'm saying here and put it into practice.